Hello, 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 and welcome back again to the Redeem Revelations podcast. I am your host, Jamisha, and I'm back with another week, another talk, another vulnerable moment to share with my brothers and sisters in Christ. I actually had something else planned for this particular week, but this was just one of those things. Sometimes the impromptu things, I wholeheartedly, as a creative, I wholeheartedly believe that the impromptu things, or what seems impromptu, or what seems like all of a sudden, or what seems like random, like let's just talk about this instead, or let's just do this instead, that those moments are literally divine, and they're on time, and they're meant for purpose. And so I do not resist the Lord whenever He changes my direction, or because a lot of times we can be planning to do something for ourselves, and then it's like, whoop, nope, do this instead. And so I'd rather pivot and follow the Lord, because I know that whatever it is that the Lord pivots me to, that not only does it help me, does it minister to me, but it also will minister to somebody else who may be in the same place as well. So I don't despise it at all. But today I'm coming with something a lot more, I guess I'd say vulnerable, a lot more honest, kind of digging into, I'm not really teaching today, just digging into just some things that I had been feeling, that the Lord had just been ministering to me about, just to help somebody else who may be in the same position or same thought or same as me. And so I want to talk about handling heavy seasons. And when I say heavy seasons, I mean like the seasons where it feels like everything is on you, and the seasons where it feels like you have more responsibility, where it seems like maybe last season you didn't have as much to do, or there wasn't as much required of you, but this season that you're in, it seems like everybody's looking for something from you, or that there's an expectation for you to show up everywhere. And it's really, really, as well, I guess if I could say one more thing about it, it would be that it's also like the season where you're being stretched. And so when I say heavy season, I don't mean heavy as in like you're carrying unnecessary weight, because let's be clear, no, we don't carry unnecessary weight with the Lord. But when I say heavy, I just mean that this season is more intense, and it's just really, it's pressing on you more because it's pulling more out of you. And so, but even so, in the midst, it still sometimes feels heavy, but that's because there's a matter of us shifting the weight even in it. And the weight that we shift really just comes from us instead of trying to move and do it in our strength when these things are coming, that we do it in the Lord's strength. And sometimes the Lord's strength doesn't just look like, a physical strength, but it looks like an inward strength, an encouragement, a lifting up, a wisdom, a knowledge, a strategy. It looks like all those things. And so it really just requires a switch. But for me, in this particular season, I have been feeling a lot like, and for those of you who don't know me, I am a wife and a mother, and I am a stay-at-home mother as well. So therefore I have a 24/7 job. I know we be saying like it's a 24/7 job that we don't get paid for. And I don't mean that as in like, to discredit or to it's not a complaint, but it is a 24/7 job as a mom, or if whether you are a man or a woman, if you're a parent, period, that parenthood, you don't clock out of being a parent. Even when your kids get grown, you're always a parent. But for a mother, because of her job of nurturing and constantly, just being there for the child, it's like a 24/7 non-clock outable job. And sometimes it becomes heavy, or sometimes it feels heavy. And then you have as well being a wife, where you don't clock out of that either. You're a wife 24/7. You are in covenant 24/7. So these things you're committed to 24/7. And there are just certain seasons, like I'm learning, like right now, the season that I'm in, because I have younger children, I have one who's she's a little bit more independent. She can do things on her own. But I also have very young children who depend on me for everything. And they're also entering stages into their life where the development is changing and where it's really just requiring a little bit more attention. And they're going through their phases and things like that, their growth phases and stuff like that. And so, but I'm in a particular season where I cannot really, first of all, since because I'm a stay-at-home mom, of course, there's no daycare. I am the daycare. I am the daycare. But I'm in this season where it seems like there's no outlet for me. It seems like there's nowhere to go. It seems like there's nothing else to do. It seems like there's like my entire life, it like just right now. And even though like I said, it's just a season, it feels like right now my entire life is just wrapped around my children and my spouse and my children. And that has really been pressing like a weight on me, because I also know that there are things that God has called me to do, that he's having me to prepare and things like that. And it's been like, Lord, you want me to do this and you want me to do this. But every time I turn around, I can't even sit down and have a moment to focus on doing this because two kids are pulling me this way and one kid is pulling me that way. And then my spouse is pulling me this way. And it's stretching me out everywhere. I don't have anything for myself. I need help and all these things. And so I've been dealing with these feelings. I've been dealing with these things and these things that I have been thinking to myself. Now, I avoid speaking things out of my emotions, because we have a tendency as human beings, as you know, just when we get uncomfortable about something, or when something offends us, or when something, makes us feel a way, we think that immediately that we just supposed to just speak it out and just be like, okay, this is what's wrong, and so fix it, or we just think that it's just supposed to just up and come out of our mouth. But one thing the Lord has taught me, and that he teaches me in every season, is to be slow to speak and quick to hear and slow to anger. And so being slow to speak for me means being mindful. And before I say something, even if I feel something intensely, it's okay for me to take the time to process that, and for me to have a conversation with the Lord within myself, and we have to make that a habit, because that's wisdom, and it will save us a lot of headache, a lot of potential arguments that could arise because we've spoken too fast, or because we've spoken out of our feelings and not out of, we have not taken the time to rationalize, or to just sit with the Holy Spirit and just understand the situation before we open our mouth to speak. And so I have been careful, because one of the things that the Lord told me at the beginning of last month, or which was the beginning of my new season, it seemed like, was don't complain. Do not complain. Do not put your mouth on God's work, okay? Just don't complain. And we'll come back to that. But I have just been careful not to open my mouth and just say everything that I feel, and just take a minute, and then if I need to, just cast my cares on the Lord real quick, because there be moments where I'm in a moment of where I feel overwhelmed and overstimulated, because everything's happening at one time and everybody's requiring something of me at one time, and it's just like it be overwhelming. And there are moments where I have to literally stop myself and say, do not speak out what you feel. Just endure and take your moment. And sometimes I've had to endure for a few minutes, and then kind of just step away for 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, and just breathe and just tell the Lord, look, I'm trying, but I need you, because it's just, and I even have moments where it feels like it's not fair, where it feels like, Lord, I'm having to do so much. I feel like I'm having to do so much. I feel like and those are the honest thoughts and the honest feelings, especially in, it's even more challenging when there is an expectation where people look at you and they think that because it's like we handle it so well. And I don't say this to brag or to boast, but I do try my best to not make it look like I like make myself or my family or anything look like what I be going through sometimes inwardly. And I really try to make sure that I still stand strong, but I stand strong because of the Lord, and not because all the strength is in me and I didn't know, but because of the Lord. And I know that's why. I know that's how I'm getting through. But people look at that from the outside and they think that, oh, you got it all together, or, oh, you can handle it. And so, from the outside looking in, when you hear someone on the outside say, oh, you can handle it, it feels like, you know, like, you don't know what I'm suffering, Maggie. I need some help. Help me. Like, you don't know what I'm going through. Like, seriously. But but other people look and they see, oh, you got it together, it's working out, or they don't even see those moments at all. They don't see those moments of overstimulation or anything like that. They just see the good moments, and so they're like, well, you're doing fine. And even though it may not be the thing of you, maybe you can handle it, but still maybe you're not totally fine, or maybe you still need some sort of release or relief or outlet or something to to just be able to be recharged and refreshed. And that's been my issue. It's like, Lord, I have not found that place. I have not found that thing, because everything that I do and everything that I have seems to be somehow attached to, in some way attached to my children or my husband. And it's like, I was telling my mom not long ago, I was like, it's wild when you as a mom feel like your mom time or your me time is when you go grocery shopping, even though what you're doing is still for somebody else. It's still for the household. It's still for your children, still for your spouse. It's not necessarily for you, something for you, just for you to enjoy, just for you. Like, it's a shame. It's a shame. But that is the season that I'm in. And one of the things that I have to remember is that it's just the season. This is the season. That's something that the Holy Spirit constantly reminds me as well when I start to get too deep in those feelings, that this is just a season. This is just the season that you're in, and there's going to come a point in time where the season is going to change and the weight is going to shift again, and then a help is going to come, or then an opportunity is going to come, or things are going to move in such a way where one load will become lighter because somebody will take up the other load, or because in some type of way I see God shifting things. I see God changing things, and I see that season is on the horizon, but I still have to get through. And so handling the heavy seasons is not always easy. It is not always easy, but it's so necessary as well. Like I said, it is a seasons where it feels like you have more responsibility, but ultimately it's a season where you're being stretched. And what I have recognized, even in this season of me feeling like, God, I can't, or God, I'm overwhelmed, or God, this is too much, even still in the midst of when I have my moments, God always comes back and shows me that you can, and you can because my grace is upon you, and you can because I will strengthen you, and you can because I'm helping you, and you can, and you will, and you're going to get through, and you're getting through, and you're doing a good job. You're doing well. You're enduring this thing well, baby girl. You're enduring this thing well, daughter. You're enduring this thing well, my son. You are doing well. Because sometimes as well, it can feel like things are so all over the place, or things become so overwhelming that even in the moments where you have those emotions, it feels like, well, maybe I'm not doing so good, or maybe even me just having this emotional moment is not good, and it means I've gone backwards. But no, that's not the case. That's not the case. But even then, as those moments come and you learn to cast those things on the Lord, and those moments come and you learn to shift and allow Him to move you, and allow Him to be your strength, and allow Him to help you to endure, and to help you to get through it, there's something that is changing and growing and being produced in you, that's causing the stretching to happen. That's where the stretching comes from. And that's where, and what I've learned as well in this season is that in the things that I have thought that I couldn't handle, that a lot of it has just required me to shift in my way of thinking, to shift in my routine, to shift in, and what I've noticed as well, and He's been teaching me this for actually some months now, and I've been seeing the fruit of it, because I've also been in a place where he's been wanting me to learn how to rest as well. Because the thing that I've been waiting for, the promise that I've been waiting for, is a thing that only he can come through and give me. It's not something that really I have done my part in preparation, but ultimately the coming through, or the moment, or the suddenly moment, it only is initiated by him, and it's only in his timing. It's only at the appointed time. And so I've been in a wait for that time. And so I've had to shift from, okay, God, being constantly worried about how, when, have I done enough? Have I done enough? Is it delayed? Instead of worrying about that, the Lord has been like, I just need you to focus on your family. I just need you to focus on this here. And so I've been feeling like I've had moments where the enemy has made me feel like I'm not doing enough. You're not doing enough. Despite the fact that I'm doing a lot, despite the fact that as a mom and as a wife, I am doing a lot, and I am stewarding a lot. The enemy still has had moments, or I've had moments where the enemy has still tried to make me feel like you're not doing enough, and then has tried to put a rush on me, and has tried to put a false urgency on me to make me move. And then the Lord's just like, no, be still. Because every time I ask the Lord, I'm like, I start feeling this rush, and then every time I ask the Lord, he's like, I just need you to be still. And I'm like, okay, well, then that means the enemy is trying to convince me otherwise. Or the enemy is trying to convince me that it ain't happening, or it ain't, because it ain't happening fast enough, or because it hasn't happened yet. But really, and God has been in this last month, or last couple of weeks, really, I'll say, God has really been showing me that, look, I got the timing on this. Okay, do not allow the enemy to convince you otherwise. I got the timing on this, and my timing is going to be perfect. You have not missed anything. You haven't missed anything, and you're not going to miss anything. Just keep it on, and be still. Just be still and just rest. And I had to realize too, because there's some things I have been asking God for, like, God, with my marriage, continue to make it new, and also my relationship with my children, continue to grow those and stuff like that. And I had at one point had been so focused on everything else that I missed that even in what felt like a heavy season, everything being on me, God was giving me the opportunity to just focus on them. But my mom had told me a while back, she said, the enemy wants you to feel like your family is a distraction. And ever since she said that, something clicked in me. It was like a breakthrough moment for me. Like, the enemy really wants you to think that your family is a distraction. The enemy wants you to think that your family is in the way of everything that God has for you. But it's the opposite. It's the opposite. Like your distraction is your worry about what God's going to do. But that part is in God's hand. What God actually wants you to focus on is your family. And so I had been learning that, and I had been turning it around, and I'm like, okay, Lord, it's making sense. Okay, it's making sense. And so I started to shift from that way. But even as I started to shift and started to come into this mind, it just seemed like, even in the midst of that, even like I said, God, I've been making whatever preparations I can, but now it's just been seeming like I've really just been getting into, and I think a lot of it has just been the realization that as a stay-at-home mom, like, you don't really see anybody. You don't really do much. You just watch kids all day, and kids watch you all day, And so the realization of how it seems like my life has not had much, I haven't been able to see much, has really kind of been getting to me as well. But even so, like I said, again, I have to remind myself that it's just a season. It's just temporary. But it's just temporary. It's just a season. And eventually the season is going to shift, but it still does not change the fact that, those emotions come and I have to endure them. But the Lord has been like, you just need to just continue to focus on your family. And in the moments where you think, like basically, it's like almost like if I could put it in I guess the simplest words, he's been showing me how he redeems the time for me, because I have been feeling like I've invested so much time, or been investing so much time in everyone else around me and none in myself, or not enough in myself. But he's been showing me that if you focus here first, and it's almost like seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. So it's almost like if I worry about, or if I focus on what he tells me to focus on first, and not allow the enemy to convince me that it needs to be the opposite way, then he will make the time. He always adds the time on somewhere, and he always adds the time. And he has been doing that. Like, I have to even remember in those moments that God is he redeems your time. The time that you feel like you don't have right now, if you just press in, even so, if you just be obedient and surrender, because ultimately, even in those moments, for me, it's an act of surrendering my own will, because my will is to find me a little space for 2 hours and be there by myself with nobody saying mom, none of that. That's my will immediately. But God is like, if you surrender here and sacrifice here, as a mom, you have a sacrifice. If you sacrifice here, I will make sure that you get what you need. I will make sure that you get filled up. I will make sure that you get it. I will make sure. And I think the problem sometimes is that because we don't get it immediately, because it requires us to, it seems like it requires us to give up something first, and then in order to get it. But honestly, it's more worth it, because the way that he adds on the time, and the way that he sends back the help, and the way that he brings things back around, is just kind of like, wow, wow. And then it ends up being rewarding, not just in the sense that you get the time redeemed, but also in what happens in you and in around you, or in the situation, or for me, for my sake, what happens in my household and my family when I do be obedient, and I do just go forth and dig in and focus on my family first, that it begins to make things easier for me in other places. It's like, okay, well, you want your time, and you want your children to sit still, and you want, but you have to first kind of give them some attention, and give them the things that they need, and focus on them, and spend the time with them, and do that first, so that they can be settled, and so that they can get what they need. And then I'll turn around and give you what you need. And then when I give you what you need, it'll be enough. It'll be refreshing. And sometimes it's been more than I've expected. Maybe at some point grandma just suddenly says, hey, can I get the babies for the weekend or something? And I'm not even expecting it. And it's like, well, wow. Okay. Well, thank you. And I have to thank the Lord, because I'm like, well, you know what, Lord, I spent this week feeling like I was, like it was just all about them. And I gave my best to them, and I humbled myself, and I did surrender, and I did, try to focus on them, to give them what I know that they needed. And also, getting out of it, whatever it is that you need to do in me as well. And then this is how you came back, and you made this thing balance out for me. And I gotta honor that, God. I gotta honor that. Like, we have these ideas of how we should receive our repayment, or how we should, that's the reality of it. Really, is what I'm seeing and learning, is that we just have our ideas of how we're supposed to manage our time, or how the timing is supposed to go. But it's like, no. Whenever you give God your time first, or you give your time to wherever God says to give your time to first, he will literally redeem your time later, and he makes it all well. But seriously, handling the heavy seasons, like we have to really kind of, take the heavy seasons for what they are. Like I said, the stretching seasons. And I think the way that I've been getting through it the most, and I'm going to share it with you guys, the way I've been getting through it the most, or getting through it the best, is, I've been kind of I've been kind of looking at it and taking these three things to just help me to endure. And the first thing I had to do, or that I do, is acknowledge, what is taking place, what is happening, what's taking place around me, and what's taking place in me, the stretching. I have to constantly acknowledge that, because actually that's really what I put my hope in. I put my hope in the fact that this particular season, or this stretching, or this responsibility, or whatever, it's producing something good in me. It's producing something righteous in me, and it's producing something that God desires. And I have the grace for this. And it's producing something good in me. And I can testify that it is producing something good in me in this particular season, that is producing a discipline, even the more a discipline, and it's producing a focus and a love even the more for my family, for others, to serve others. Like, it's producing that in me. And so I'm down with that. I acknowledge that, and I keep my hope in that to press in even the more. Like, okay, Lord, like, okay, well, it's going to be worth it in the end, because ultimately, and even through it all, I'm going to come out of this thing closer to you as well, and even reaping more benefits than I can probably even see right now. And then I'm like, okay, God, I have to also, like, one of the things that we have to do is, when we going through these heavy seasons, is get through it without complaints. We have to try to get through these seasons without complaints. Like I said, the Lord told me at the beginning of last month, don't complain, don't put your mouth on what I'm doing. So we have to not be tempted to murmur or to put our mouth on God's work or his process because it's not going the way we think it should, or because it feels, and it feels heavy, and because it feels like it's not fair, because sometimes our pride and our entitlement will start to creep in, and then we'll start to saying all types of stuff, and then we'll start to destroy all the things that we've been prophesying and speaking and building up and praying up. We'll get to destroying it, and then not only destroying it with our own words, but also allowing the enemy access through our complaints. Because one of the things that the Holy Spirit told me a while back was that everything that you complain about, you give the enemy access to. When you complain about these things, when you complain about your husband, when you complain about your family, when you complain about your situation, when you complain about this person, when you complain about this relationship, when you complain about these things, you give the enemy access, okay? And you open a door. You open a door. And so in this season, he brought that back to me to remind me, do not put your mouth on what he's doing. Do not put your mouth on anything that he's doing. If you have a complaint, what I've learned is that even if you recognize a complaint that is coming up in your heart, or that is coming up, immediately don't speak it out. Take it to the Lord and cast the care that you have on him, and let him help you to process, because he will. And open your heart and your mind to really as well, to allow him to change your perspective and to change your mind, or to bring you to repentance about that complaint, really, so that you can overcome that, and so that you can see something different, and so that you can actually move forward, have a breakthrough. Instead of having a complaint or complaining, you can have a breakthrough, and then you can be able to get something out of it, and lean into something, get something out of it, rather than you just complain and let the enemy have his way in you, and then in your situation, and then be like, I don't know what happened, I don't know why, and all of a sudden it's delayed and all that, because you were running your mouth and you were complaining about what God was doing and how long it was taking and all these things, as if he does not have the perfect timing, the perfect moment, as if he does not have all that written already in his hand, And, the last thing that I've been having to do as well, and just remember, is that I have God's help. We have to get through these seasons with God's help. And that's something that I was saying in the beginning, is where that shift comes in, to leaning on the Lord, really leaning on the Lord to strengthen you. The other day I had a little vent session with the Lord, and I was like, Lord, I got to cast my cares. I got to give this to you. And right at the end, I said, Lord, give me a verse in your word that I can meditate on for the rest of the day, to just keep me going. And I immediately heard Isaiah 41:10, which says, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And the biggest thing that stood out to me was, yes, I will help you. Because I had been asking, like, Lord, I need some help. I need some help. And I know as well that all my help comes from him. But all my help does not look like what I think my help is going to look like sometimes. And I think that's where we as a people sometimes miss God, because of what we think. And that comes from leaning on our own understanding. But we miss God, and we miss what our help is, and we miss what he's saying will be our help, or how he's showing up as our help. Because we're looking for instance, as a mom, we're looking for somebody to come take the kids for 10 days, but the Lord is not bringing that type of help. Maybe he's bringing someone who has been cooking for you, or someone to offer you out to dinner one night or something, or offer to take you guys out. The help can come in different ways, but because we had these expectations and we set our minds on these things, we can miss God's help. but we have to know that our help comes from him. He will help us. He will help us get through. He will help us to carry the load if we shift. And we have to, of course, like I said, we have to choose to shift, choose to surrender. We have to choose to move, and to shift that way, and to allow him to either take part of it, or to just open ourselves up to whatever way that God desires to help, and that we receive it with gratitude. We receive it with gratefulness in our hearts, that Lord, that this is your way of helping, and that this is what I'm going to cling to overcome this moment right now. And so I just want to encourage somebody who is handling who is in a heavy season, or I guess I won't call it a heavy season, I'll call it a stretching season, that whatever God has placed on you, the responsibilities, the things that have increased, that God has not put those things on you to break you or to break you down, but really so that you can come to him and depend on him for what you need, for what needs to be produced in you, and even for the help that you need or the strength that you need to really navigate it, so that you can begin to, in your capacity can be increased, so that you can be able to handle all these things. Because the reality is that the next season that you're going into, and this is something that he showed me just this week, is that the next season that you're going into, you need everything that I'm doing in you or doing in this season. You're going to need it to have been done before next season, because what you're waiting for, the thing that I've promised you, it comes with an increased responsibility, and it comes with a level of trust necessary to steward. It comes with a level of discipline necessary to maintain or sustain. And so what's really happening in this seemingly heavy season, or the stretching season, is really a preparation for you overall for the next and greater season, or the harvest season that is getting ready to come upon you.